Hey, it's Thomas Delauer, and welcome to my home. I mean, this is not literally my home. This is my home, but I don't live in a sauna. That would be kind of weird and kind of messed up. But what I want to talk about today is red light therapy and how I use it throughout the course of my day. Because I'm not this person that spends like an hour in front of a red light. Okay, I'm a busy dad. I'm a real person. But people ask all the time how I implement it into my life. And there's really three very specific ways that I implement it. I'm going to share them with you. But a quick nutshell kind of breakdown of what red light therapy is. Within our cell, the mitochondria have the ability to absorb red light. Okay, yes, our cells can recognize light. It's how our body a lot of times knows that it's daytime or nighttime. Of course it can recognize that. But what happens is cytochrome C oxidase can recognize red light. And when that happens, it triggers a nitric oxide release, which in turn can trigger more adenosine triphosphate production, so more energy production. It can also trigger potential like modulation of inflammation. It can trigger that kind of effect. But it can also have an effect on gene transcription and activating or basically increasing the affinity for the transcription of specific genes. So yes, there is a lot of kind of evidence out there surrounding how red light therapy can influence certain things. Personally, I find that I get a huge mental boost from it, and I find that it helps me with my performance. And there's a lot of evidence. I mean, like the San Francisco 49ers use red light therapy for that. But how does it work? I mean, I use a sauna because a sauna makes me feel good, makes me feel alert, helps my brain. So when I start my day, I usually use red light therapy. So let me show you a little bit of what I do here. Now, it's not first thing in the morning at the time of filming this, but I can at least get the point across. So when I start my day, usually it's pretty dark out. I'm usually starting my day early on in the morning, and that means that it's not light out yet. Well, I don't want to just be exposing myself to a bunch of blue light by turning on my phone first thing in the morning and all that. So what I typically do is I start my morning with some red light therapy, and that's sort of my cognitive boost. Now, I would be lying if I said I did it every single day. So down here, I'm in my little, you've probably seen me do some videos here before. This is like my little kind of guest area that's beneath our house. So when family comes to visit or anything like that, when family comes to visit, you guys get the Keurig. We get the good coffee upstairs, sorry. But anyway, I've got my big red light therapy device here. And I'm gonna show you what I do with it, why I do it first thing in the morning. So for me, it's a little bit of killing two birds with one stone. All right, so if it's first thing in the morning, you do want to be able to have a little bit of red light therapy occurring at that time. I feel like I get a huge mental surge from it. I get a lot of recovery from it, which I'll talk about in a second, because some really interesting studies that have demonstrated when it comes down to like injury recovery, which I've got an old kind of L5S1 and also an L2 issue from when I was super overweight. So I find that it helps me with that, especially before a workout, but also it gives me a chance to expose myself to some red light and not just bombard myself with blue light. So when you look at sort of the natural cycles in terms of our light, when we get up in the morning, having exposure to red light can be beneficial with helping us get up and get going in the morning, whereas if we were to bombard ourselves with blue light when it's still dark out, it can mess up our circadian rhythms. I don't want my body thinking that 4:30 or 5 a.m. when it's still dark out is daylight time. Like, that's not what I want. Sure, I still get up early, but I don't want my body thinking it's light out. Why? Because that can mess me up when I go to sleep. So using red light is a great way for me to kind of still get some light exposure, still wake up and still get some benefits, but without the bombardment of blue light or a bunch of fluorescent lights when I get up in the morning. So anyway, so this is my big panel here. I'll show you. I do 11 minutes. So I don't even do a whole lot of time. I do 11 minutes. You see those suckers going to go on. I know it's really intense and really bright. And what I'll do is I'll usually strip down, take my shirt off, and I'll get really close to this panel. Let me explain the research surrounding recovery for just a second. So it's really interesting because there's a study that was published in the American Journal of Sports Medicine that took a look at 52 different athletes that had what is called Achilles tendinopathy. So they had a bunch of swelling and pain in their Achilles tendon. So whenever they'd work out, it would swell up, it would hurt. So they said, okay, for 8 weeks, we're going to have one group with tendinopathy go ahead and do red light therapy and exercise, and the other group just do exercise. Well, the red light therapy group had significant improvements in their pain during a workout. They weren't feeling as painful, right? They weren't in as much pain. So it's kind of interesting, and a lot of times when you look at that, that could be because of the potential modulation of inflammation that occurs kind of systemically after cytochrome C oxidase ends up absorbing the red light and kind of sends this downstream effect. So for me, first thing in the morning, I get that benefit of the red light by kind of helping me wake up in a gentle way, but I also feel like I am doing myself a service by helping my back get a little bit more of maybe that potential anti-inflammatory effect that I need before I go into my workout. Again, I don't live here. This is like my downstairs office slash guest area, so I get to use it when no one's visiting. But interestingly enough, when I'm doing a little bit of red light therapy, I get it, of course, for my back. I try to use the device as close to my back as I possibly can, where I know I have injury. Now, again, some of this can be speculative, but when you look at the research, you find the closer that you are to the affected area, you end up getting potentially better result. Now, additionally, I like to get my head close to it. Why? Because there's some evidence that shows that red light therapy can improve what's called neurogenesis in the hippocampal region of the brain. So for me, let me go ahead and turn this off for a second while I'm at least doing this video. For me, having that potential neurogenesis, which is the development of new neurons, new brain cells ultimately, that is a very, very important thing. Okay, for what I do, I like my brain to be sharp. I do a lot of fasting, I practice a ketogenic lifestyle, and for me, a lot of the reason I do that is to get more mental benefit. So if I have more potential ATP production, again, ATP is adenosine triphosphate where you're actually creating energy. If that's potentially happening in my brain, then that's a good way for me to start the day. So for me, 10, 11 minutes starting in the day, whether I'm meditating or what, is a great way to just go ahead and just get my head on straight. So again, just so you guys do know, if you guys want to use any of these red light therapy devices or anything like that, I put a link down below for Juve, which some of the other devices I'll show you that I use, like that you can have different applications for, you can get through Juve, and there's a special link down below. So again, Juve is probably the best red light therapy device, at least that I've experienced. And again, it's a lot of credibility since the 49ers are using them, NFL's using them. So a special link down below if you want to check them out. So now let's head into my gym and I'll show you a little bit more practical what I do up there. Oh, and for what it's worth, a lot of times I will do that before I ever have coffee. Okay, so I'll have my apple cider vinegar in the morning, which you guys probably see me do a lot. Have my apple cider vinegar, some water, a little bit of salt, maybe some cayenne in that. Then I'll come down and I'll do my red light. Then I'll go upstairs and I'll have some coffee. So I'm gonna head back upstairs now, and then I'm gonna head into my garage gym and I'll kind of show you what's out there. Okay, let me show you what my garage gym looks like here. This is pretty cool, I'm pretty proud of this. I mean, it's pretty awesome. I'll kind of show you around a little bit first. Everything I do, I'm not really big on lifting super heavy weights anymore. For me, I'm much more into longevity training and what I call sort of that zone 2 training. I do a lot of cardio. I probably do more cardio than I do actual lifting, because at this point in my life, I'm much more about longevity. I'm much more about just feeling good and potential like health span, right? Good, healthy aging. So my kettlebells don't even go that heavy. I mean, for me, it's all about getting moving, and maybe 3 days a week, I'll do more compound moves now, you know, where I'll be doing like full body, heavier compound stuff. And the rest of the time I'm doing a lot of HIIT cardio, high intensity interval training. And that's where like I've got my Juve device there, and that's a different device. It's kind of interesting. It's their newer device. And again, big shout out to Juve, because I mean, they are supporting this channel. So full disclaimer, like they are a sponsor on this channel. So I don't want you to think this is like me just trying to like slip that in there. I don't want to be contrived. Like they do support this channel. But that's their newer device, which I'll explain in a minute. And I use that while I'm working out. So if you have a home gym, that's a really cool one to use. Anyhow, let me kind of show you what's up. So there's a really cool study. I think it was published in Oxidative Medicine and Cellular Longevity, which is a cool journal. Okay, and it took a look at, in this case, I think it was a European study. It took a look at 22 soccer players and treated them with red light therapy in a performance setting. And they found that the red light therapy group had increased their time to exhaustion tremendously. They had a higher VO2 max, and their interleukin levels, like some of their inflammatory cytokines, had gone down, which again is something that you can probably see in a lot of clinical instances with red light therapy. It was that study that really kind of got me over the edge. It was that one that was like, okay, this is something that I actually want to try. Even though it was a relatively small study, there haven't been these massive meta-analysis on red light therapy yet, because it's still relatively new. But everything that I'm about is testing things out, and I'm not really out anything by exposing myself to some red light. And originally, they found that red light therapy had an effect because they were able to grow plants in space with red light, showing that clearly there is an effect there. There is some kind of like cellular effect. So as far as humans are concerned with performance, yeah, again, you're seeing like pro football teams utilizing red light therapy, not just for recovery, but actually for potential performance enhancement. It's pretty neat. So I'm just gonna get a little warm up, a little stair climber here, ramp it up a little bit. So the other thing that was interesting with that study, that same one, they found that creatine kinase. Now creatine kinase is usually a marker of like exhaustive exercise. So after a workout that is intense, you might see a pretty significant spike in creatine kinase. That just means, okay, this person worked hard, there's a recovery mechanism in place. Well, they found that when red light therapy was used, there was less creatine kinase after a hard workout, demonstrating that the perception on the body of intensity was a little bit less. The body recovered better, or it at least got into that performance state faster, stayed there, and was able to recover better. So anyhow, just getting a little warm up in, then I'll show you what I do. Now, mind you, ordinarily this would be done very much so fasted, early in the morning, empty stomach other than having my apple cider vinegar and having black coffee. Okay, and maybe some lion's mane in my coffee. So pretty straightforward, like not a whole lot going on there. Now, in this case, it's midday, so it's a little bit different, but I'll still show you what I would do. Now, some of this is going to be weird. You don't have to adopt all of it. I just want to explain all the weirdness that I do because it's real and you can apply what works for you. Okay, so this Joovv device here, this one's a little bit different. Okay, so this one is their newer device, which again, if you use that link down below, this is probably what you would end up getting. Okay, so this is just one panel because I don't need anything crazy. Now, the cool thing about this one, the newer devices, they emit light quite a bit further, okay? So I can put this on a bench or I can leave this right here and I will literally work out in front of it. And now, mind you, a lot of times, see, it's bright out. Normally, it's dark, right? So I get a couple of benefits, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Because usually, it's going to be dark, and I leave the lights off in my actual gym. Here, let me explain. So there is a benefit to having ambient red light as well. Okay, so if I get the actual wavelength effect from like 12 to 18 inches of this device, then that's tremendous for sort of the cytochrome C oxidase cellular effect. And again, if I want nitric oxide to be released, okay, in my body, then I want to be close to that device. Now, nitric oxide synthase, which allows nitric oxide production, all this has to do with red light. Now, nitric oxide is also something that is going to give you more of that muscle pump, okay? It's going to allow the blood vessels to relax, to vasodilate, and therefore potentially more blood flow, meaning a better workout, better nutrient delivery, all that stuff that kind of goes alongside with that, potentially, right? Now, when I am working out and it's dark in my gym and I turn this light on, I have an ambient red light effect. There are a lot of studies that show that ambient light plays a big role too. I don't want to just turn fluorescent lights on. I don't like the idea of going into the gym and having fluorescent lights in my face because that's a bombardment of blue light, which is sending weird environmental cues. I sound like a crazy person, but if I'm in control of this, why don't I biohack my way through it? So I like having the sort of ambient light effect. Now look how powerful this thing is. Okay, it's over there. And now look, you can see it all the way over there and it's in broad daylight. Okay, so that's pretty darn cool, right? So then what I'll do is I'll go through my typical workout. And let me show you kind of what I mean by that. So this thing is super light. Okay, so there we go. I put it on my bench. And that way, if you look kind of in the mirror, I have it really close and it's actually hitting my body. It's hard to see right here, but it's hitting my body. So if I wanted to actually work out, I have it in a perfect spot where I can go ahead and I can start lifting, right? So whatever it is that I'm gonna do, maybe this day I'm doing more squat-oriented stuff. I mean, wherever I wanna go, I can bring this red light close to me. It's not something that I do every single time. It's something that I do when I want a different twist to my workouts. Now, there was an interesting study that was published in the journal Lasers in Medicinal Science that was really, really cool. Okay, this one was looking at specific effects of red light therapy when it came down to maximum voluntary contraction, like how hard a muscle could contract, but also the overall recovery. Okay, so they did a couple different things in terms of how they tested red light therapy with these given subjects. So what they did is they tested phototherapy, okay, so using various lights and red light and stuff. And they tested them at baseline, like pre-exercise, and they tested them various intervals after exercise. They found that the group that used red light therapy had not only decreased levels of creatine kinase, showing that they basically were recovering faster, but delayed onset muscle soreness was significantly less, so they weren't getting as sore. That itself is pretty fascinating. But they also found that maximum voluntary contraction increased from immediately after exercise to 96 hours after exercise. So in other words, they were able to contract their muscle tighter and harder even after exercise if they used phototherapy, red light therapy, versus not, meaning that the recovery was much faster. So not only are you getting a performance attribute, but you're getting potential recovery too. It's allowing you to be able to hit the gym harder again the next day. So if you don't want to look like a complete weirdo like me working out with red light, I mean, if you don't have the luxury of doing it in the comfort of your own home, well, then at least when you go home, you can foam roll or you can do anything like that in front of red lights, right? That makes a big difference in and of itself. So it's not to say that you have to be a complete, like, kind of freakazoid like me that does this weird stuff. I have the luxury of having a home gym, and I don't care what people think. But I used to care a lot what people think, and I would have been caught dead bringing a red light therapy device into the gym. So point is, even when you get home, just 5 minutes of red light therapy after your workout could play a really big role. Now, it's speculated that the reason or the mechanism with this is a reduction in reactive oxygen species, so less oxidative stress, which is pretty fascinating. But if you remember, back in the very beginning of this video, I was sitting in my sauna. Now, I do a lot of videos talking about how saunas can increase heat shock proteins. Now, heat shock proteins are chaperoning proteins that allow basically the proper folding and unfolding of proteins within our cells so that we don't have sort of like a cellular mutation and cellular dysfunction. But heat shock proteins are only activated under extreme exercise activity, like when we are actually working and getting our body temperature hot. And heat shock proteins can preserve muscle significantly. Well, it's speculated within this study that red light therapy may have been activating heat shock proteins. So when it comes down to muscle protein synthesis, it's a little bit of a hypothesis, but if muscle protein synthesis could potentially improve because of red light therapy, maybe it's because we are increasing, well, heat shock proteins, and we're having better chaperoning, so the proteins are able to rebuild better. So some of that is a little bit speculative because we're looking at the research and what we can find. But if you look around on the internet, most of the people that are really into health and longevity are looking at red light therapy. So anyhow, here's one other thing I want to show you. Let's just say I'm on the go, right? I'm traveling, or I don't know, maybe I'm just nursing an injury, which a lot of times happens for me. You know, I used to be 300 pounds, so a lot of times I just encounter these injuries that I had when I was super overweight before that rear their ugly head when I do something stupid in the gym, or, you know, I don't warm up. As I'm getting older, I'm realizing, yes, I actually have to warm up properly. So let's just say I'm on the go, okay? So climbing in the car, I'm like, shoot, you know, I haven't had a chance to really do what I would like to do as far as my recovery is concerned. Well, that's where I keep something in my glove box. I keep this one. So I use a portable red light therapy device. And that one is a lot more of it's less my performance and it's more of my injury prevention and potential rehab. So right now, I have this recurring shoulder thing that's been going on for a while. Okay, now if you listen carefully, see, it's not really supposed to do that, and eventually that's going to cause a problem, right? But I'm not saying that this is going to help that, but right now this is the injury that I have. So I might spend a little extra time using localized red light therapy there, trying to stimulate more mitochondrial like respiration and trying to trigger more potential ATP to go to that area. ATP doesn't just give us, well, it does just give us energy, but it doesn't give us energy just in a literal sense, like, oh, I need energy to work out. We need energy there for all kinds of things to occur. Okay, for the proper healing, for the proper recovery, for the proper just activation, blood flow, nutrient delivery, you name it. So, you know, when you look at how red light therapy works, it has practical uses across the board. So I used it when I first got up because I wanted that mental boost. Okay, but then additionally, you've probably seen in my other videos, I do a lot of red light therapy before filming. Okay, now when I am writing out notes, or when I'm studying, or when I'm looking at research prior to filming, because a lot of times I brush up right before I hop on camera to make sure I'm fluent, I will expose myself to a bunch of red light. And I feel that that is just allowing me to get that neural stimulation that I need. So this, let's say I'm going to a meeting or something, then I use a little portable device. This is called the Juve Go. And again, you can use that link down below if you want to use it, or you want to try it out. And then there's a little on button here. It comes with a cool app too. Check this out. So in this case, it's super cool because like you can bring it on an airplane, you can do whatever. So, and then you just totally on the go. I mean, again, that's something where if you're in the gym and you did want to have a little bit of this concept, you know, you could set this up, prop it up on a little stand or prop it up against a kettlebell, and you could do some of your red light therapy all at the same time, right? You're like stretching or rolling out or anything like that. So for me, if I'm on the go or something like that, I might actually use this red light therapy to feel like I'm getting a little bit more of that cognitive function that I desire, that I'm after. But in the case of an injury, now you'd want to take your shirt off or you'd want to put it up right to where the injury is. But let's say I had something going on, with maybe my elbow or something like that. I could just hold it straight up there. And you're usually looking at like anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes of therapy, right? And I might be crazy, but I notice a pretty significant impact very, very quick. So again, there's a lot of different reasons. I'm going to show you one other way that I use this that I think is really interesting. And this is just sort of a bonus for the ultra biohackers that are out there. Okay, everything I've shown you is things that I do, or things that I do, excuse me, but there's also some extreme things. Now, I don't recommend everyone do what I'm about to do, but let me just give you a little bit of an idea. Now, again, I'm not saying that everyone needs to do this, but let me go show you really quick. Now, let me be straight with you, okay? My phone shouldn't be in the sauna at 215 degrees, nor should a Joovv red light therapy device. But towards the end of my sauna, when I'm all done, I'll open the door, like so, boom, see? And then once that door is open, then my heat shock proteins are already activated from a long time in the sauna. Then I bring in my Joovv Go, and then I use it mainly on my head. Now, that sounds so crazy. What's the point? Well, a lot of it has to do with the glymphatic system. So in a sauna, we allow what is called intracranial pressure. Now, intracranial pressure means that we are allowing what's called AQP4. It's like these aqueducts that are in our brain to allow more cerebral spinal fluid into our brain. This washes out metabolites and allows us to get a little bit more of a mental clarity effect. But we also get the heavy heat shock protein, the heavy heat shock protein effect. So remember how I was talking about the heat shock proteins with exercise, heat shock proteins with sauna, and the relationship with a red light therapy device and heat shock proteins? Well, this is a perfect opportunity to capitalize on the heat shock proteins from a sauna along with the heat shock proteins from a red light therapy device. So this is an off-label use. These are not designed to be at 200 degrees, but for a short amount of time after you're in a sauna, after you crack the door open, I would argue you could get a pretty serious benefit. I get a lot of benefit. A lot of times I will use it on my back during this time. So I finish up my sauna session, okay? I'll go ahead and I'll put the device here, and then I'll go ahead and just sit, just like this, with the red light casting a glow behind me. Now, that's just me. You don't have to do that. I just wanted to throw one little extra biohacking thing out there for you. So do check out Joovv down below in the description. Special link for them. Again, big thank you to them, and I will see you tomorrow.